We've heard of many use cases for VR and the cloud, but one specific way the technology is being used by the state of Indiana may surprise you. Stephanie Condon is here with us to explain this to us. In your story here, Stephanie, I think a good place to start would be talk about first the problem that the state of Indiana had to solve.
Yeah, so the state of Indiana's Child Services Department had a problem with high turnover, and the problem really boiled down to what a difficult job it is to work as a case manager for a welfare department. Imagine going into a home, having a mother or father accused of child abuse, interviewing the family, and determining whether that child is in good hands or whether they need to be removed. And because that job is so difficult, the state had case managers, a turnover rate of case managers leaving at 40 to 50% in less than 2 years. And this was a problem for a number of reasons, but especially because it can impact the children. When a case manager gets a case, they can stay open typically from 18 months to 3 years. So if a case manager leaves in the middle of that, those cases will just get abandoned until someone else can pick up the pieces. So I spoke with Kevin Jones, the CIO of the Indiana Child Services Department, who came on the job in 2017 and was tasked with using technology to help reduce their turnover rate. So he ultimately ended up deploying cloud-based engagement tools to gather data about employee sentiment and virtual reality programs to help new and prospective employees learn about what a challenging experience it is to make those family visits.
Yeah, and Stephanie, talk a little bit about the steps involved. Like, what was the first step that they took here with the initiative?
So as with many projects, the first step was just getting a better understanding of the challenge, which means gathering data. So Jones tapped the cloud service provider Velocity to build what they call their employee engagement product, just to make sure they really understood the root of the problem. Were people leaving because the pay wasn't good enough? They had problems with management. What's going on? So in the past, when the Child Services Department had tried to survey outgoing employees, they only had about a 30% response rate. So Velocity helped them build a new survey with a smoother workflow. Effectively, the Velocity survey was integrated directly into their HR solution. So as soon as an employee gave their 2 weeks notice, they would automatically get pinged on their cell phone, via text, via email, with this survey. And just making it really seamless and easy actually increased the response rate to 95%. So that helped them understand that it really was about what a challenging job it is. People were leaving because they said the experience just didn't line up with their expectations. That was the case more than half of the time. And another interesting point about this, I think, is just how the effective survey kind of speaks to the value of the industry cloud. Velocity's what we call like an industry cloud service provider. They focus on 6 specific verticals, including government and sale. And it was built on the Salesforce platform. And Salesforce actually just announced that they are acquiring Velocity for $1.33 billion. And so that kind of deep industry expertise is really valuable right now to major cloud vendors like Salesforce and Google, and companies are really looking to strengthen their enterprise customer services. And I think the Indiana experience shows that, where the value lies for customers as well. So once they had a handle on what the problem was, the experience not lining up with expectations, then they could build a solution.
And so, Stephanie, though, how did they go from having all of that information and the data that they needed? How did they go from that to the actual VR simulations?
So that's an interesting story because the state wanted to give prospective employees the experience so they knew what they were getting into. But offering, actual experience to potential employees wasn't really an option in the public sector, especially. There are a lot of constraints, a lot of regulatory constraints. You can't just send somebody, to shadow a state employee on a family visit because they haven't gone through the proper background checks, or obviously all kinds of privacy and security concerns for all parties involved. So Jones instead decided to build a VR simulation to give interviewees the experience of going into a home and engaging with caretakers, asking questions, and making decisions about whether that child needed extra help from the state. So he worked with Accenture to build a custom simulation for Oculus headsets. And then he actually then tapped Velocity again and MuleSoft, another Salesforce company, to collect data from that simulation about how the job candidates responded to the simulations. So that helped in two ways. First, giving the prospective job candidates that experience had prompted a lot of people to just self-select out of the process. They said, you know what, this isn't for me. And that's valuable. That's obviously important for both sides when people do that. And then because they were able to collect the data with Velocity and MuleSoft, the state was also able to make a better assessment about who was the best fit for this kind of job. And they launched the program last year, and Jones said, the CIO said that they actually have reduced the turnover rate by 18% so far. So it seems to be on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So from here, what's next? Or when do they expect to roll it out in different places or?
Yeah, so right now they're using the VR program in the state's largest county, which accounts for the bulk of their hiring. They're bringing it to job fairs, and they're also rolling it into staff development training. So it's not just for prospective employees anymore. They're also going to use it to help train new employees, just to make sure they're really prepared before they go out in the field. And to also help new employees, they're implementing new surveys with Velocity. They're going to check in with people, not just after they quit, but before they quit, 30 days into the job, 60 days into the job, just to make sure that the state is giving people the support they need to feel good about their job. And the state, meanwhile, is looking at deploying VR in other departments, which will be interesting to watch because, VR is making inroads in the workplace, but usually it's job training and not this kind of hiring tool. So it'll be interesting to see whether we see its use cases expand both in the public sector and also for new workplace use cases.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. Well, this is really an interesting one, Stephanie. Thanks so much for bringing it to us. And you can find much more about Stephanie's full article there on ZDNet. Thanks for watching.